Cloud and Clear, the podcast by SADA for innovative business leaders and technology enthusiasts, where we explore how Google Cloud is transforming the industry and what that means to you. Now here's your host, Tony Safoian.
Nothing gets me more excited than welcoming a SADA alumni back in the building. Kyla Hunts, welcome to Cloud and Clear.
Thank you. I'm delighted.
I'm so excited to have you.
Yeah.
You live in LA, so this is super convenient.
Super convenient.
Right.
I'm west side, making it over to the east side sometimes.
A commute you used to make every day.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I love the like your career story in general, but like the trajectory of where you ended up. It's such part of our kind of almost recruitment and people development strategy that they spend time at SADA, then they could, end up anywhere. And I think ending up at Google Cloud is kind of like a pretty good place to be.
Absolutely.
Right?
It was a great starting point into the Google ecosystem for me. And honestly, even a little bit into my technology career. It wasn't my first tech job, but one of my first tech jobs was with SADA.
Totally.
And I think looking back at sort of those first few years, just realizing the sort of tools, resources, coaching, training that I'm not only getting right with all of that available to me online, right? Certifications. I think I actually took my GCP sales cert when I was interviewing with Joe. It was like, having this under your belt before you start is going to be a good thing. Right. Continuing to have that coaching and training before even entering into the real Google company.
So you're from Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
But just like being the rebel that you were, I guess you almost deliberately avoided working in tech for most of your, adult career life. So that's to me like a remarkable story. Obviously, it kind of goes to show that like what you resist persists, and or that maybe it's just in your DNA, you got sucked in eventually. But how did you make that transition? Because we always think about how do we enable more people to open up the possibility of working in tech, us as an ecosystem, not only in Google Cloud, but in general. We need all the talented, excited, motivated people in every category, whether it's sales and engineering, to want to kind of make this transition if they're not in it today. You have a unique story along those lines. So how did you progress in that direction, and how did it even happen?
I think it's interesting because this is a hot topic right now, right? We can look at all the technology companies just feeding off of each other, but that's going to cause labor shortages eventually. You can't just feed into tech markets only. It's expanding the talent pool, and what does it take, to build that ecosystem as one of these tech companies. And I mean, my story, I grew up in Silicon Valley, as you mentioned, actually in Sunnyvale, where Google headquarters is now. I think my backyard backed up to the original Apple headquarters on De Anza. And my mom's been in tech since she didn't even go to college. She's like the original Silicon Valley story. No college, get into tech. She's been in tech for 30 years now. So growing up with a mom in tech, want to be a little rebel. And after college, all friends and family were in tech. And I didn't want to necessarily go that typical route right
so
away.
Predictable.
Exactly.
So lame. I wanted something different.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
Look, I grew up with an expectation that I'd go into medicine, and I rejected that all out. So I know what it is to be a rebel with regards to expectations.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So sales career I pursued in home services, did that for almost 10 years, led into project management, led into sales leadership, and eventually general management for that company. And one day, I was a road warrior back then, all weekends on the road. And I remember thinking I'm ready for a shift. And I was listening to a whole bunch of books on tape, and Mark Benioff's book, Beyond the Cloud, was one that I listened to. And that was sort of the epiphany I had, okay, now I get it.
Mark Benioff is telling me I need to get into cloud.
That's exactly right? And that's kind of, if you look at the history of cloud, that was the first sort of software as a service.
Totally,
so for me, that was a bit of the epiphany. And I remember calling my mom fine, you're right.
Are you allowed to say what company she works for?
Yeah, she's at Adobe now. She's been 20 years at Cisco.
Amazing.
In partner programs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, my God.
Yep, paved the way.
We're laughing because we're about to tell you what Kyla does now. So this partner, you just can't resist it.
Exactly.
It's like a moth to a flame.
Exactly. I mean, I remember growing up and like listening to her on conference calls thinking like she works on Mars. Like technology is this mystical creature. And, you know, now we're in a similar role and we get to have these conversations. We're ideating together on the same thing. So I'm also in partner programs.
So backing up a little bit. So when you were hired, you did not have the conventional resume of someone we, hired in sales. But you came in and like crushed it. I think set the standards in like the early days of GCP sales, that a lot of that, was the sort of the stepping stone to how we do it today. And a lot of that methodology and approach kind of, lived on. And I remember I was quite sad when you wanted to leave, because I was like, stay a little longer, but because you were doing so well. So how does someone that comes from not tech at all come into tech sales and do so well? Because don't tell me it's just like, it's not fair if you say like, I'm just, totally unique and exceptional, which I know you are, but like, where's the hope for everybody else?
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is where SADA culture and Google culture like really converged for me. And now that I'm on the Google side, I can see the mirror image of it, which is also why I think I did well at SADA. There's so much support in collaboration and autonomy and trust in getting things done. And I think those are skills that like have nothing to do with the tech industry. The ability to collaborate, work as a team, push the envelope, right? Getting things done and the execution around it, I think was huge. Now being in sales, right? Relationships are everything. Coming from sales before, nothing about that changed.
But it's more than relationships, because I think when people say relationships, people think it's like the old school, like steaks and martinis, like let's go golfing together. But today, I think more than ever, relationships are formed by execution together. Executing together, delivering on your word, showing the activity level and the work ethic. Frankly, helping your, people that you sell with make more money and retire their quota. That is the foundation of what I would today define as like a good relationship.
Yep, that's exactly right. And that is the SADA model, right? When I looked at my book of business at SADA, of course it was the end customers, but it was just as much the Googlers in the regions that I was covering and the cadence that we had together and the go-to-market strategy we made together for those customers. And that's ultimately what I had to hand off, right? When leaving SADA.
True. No, we learned a lot from that. And what was unique back then especially, and it continues to be just part of our DNA, is that there was a lot of invention required. Like there was not a great playbook that existed anywhere in or outside of SADA about how to transact GCP with Google for customers in a consumption and or pre-commit fashion, how to drive and source pipeline together. And we learned a lot. I know we wouldn't be where we are sales-wise if it wasn't for the work that you did very, very early on. So I'm forever grateful for that. And now the stakes are just higher. Like the numbers just get bigger.
Well, and I think just to add on that note, right, looking at one of the things SADA does so well is ebbing and flowing to mirror, right, where the strategy with Google goes. And that makes it so easy to work with a partner who does something like that.
Well, that's definitely, now we're feeling the benefit of that more than ever, because all we do is Google Cloud. We're up in Sunnyvale where I saw you last. We've been seeing each other once a week, as you said, this year so far, but where, Nirav had that West sort of, event, and there's, I'm very well aware that like me going there, I'm contributing to help recruit other partners, which is great, because actually the ecosystem does need to grow. We need many successful partners to kind of fulfill the demand. Otherwise, Google Cloud itself will not grow as fast as it can, right? And there's more than enough business for everyone and all of that. But I could totally see the challenge of a partner who is, very successful in something else, starting with Google as something new. Like, how do you restructure or pivot, or as Simon Sinek would say, like, operate in this existential flexibility that Google requires and the market requires, if you have other things you have to do. And I think we're super fortunate that we can literally pivot whenever we need to based on market dynamics, customer demand, Google structure, Google programs. And I think that does allow sort of an easier working relationship with Google in the field.
Absolutely. And I think from the Google perspective, right, that's a very encouraging and welcoming catalyst to have when we have new programs, new ideas, and we need to experiment, and we need to test, and we need to pilot.
We're always raising
SADA's hands are always.
Yeah. We have a high degree of tolerance for pain and also uncertainty. We're totally good with both things because I think there's a benefit to being early. But let's go back to the career trajectory story because, as you know, by the way, a lot of this is influenced by Carolee Gerhardt and Amy Catalano and Nina Harding, like this openness that we now have and this sort of awareness around the importance of diversity and inclusion and being a safe and welcoming place for all people from all sorts of experiential backgrounds, but also all sorts of diversity, including obviously women in technology. You've obviously navigated that quite well, and I know that's a subject you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. But what's your experience, working in tech, and how do you think you play a role in opening more doors for I think as broad of and diverse base of potential people to enter the market as possible, which is what everybody wants.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is very cool to be on this side now and to see how many other people are looking for ways to pave that path. I'm humble enough to know that there was a lot of luck that also came into this, but plenty of tactical and actionable things that you can really do on your own to find those opportunities. Every big tech company out there has learning and training programs for free. Trailblazer with Salesforce, right? Coursera and the GCP data engineer, cloud architect, application developer. You can become any of those roles by self-study. There's also an immense amount of, I think, organizations that are starting with, historically underrepresented groups at a very early age. For example, right? Google's 20% projects that they encourage all of us to do. Last year, I was involved with the Computer Science Summer Institute here in Los Angeles.
Oh, cool.
So we're working with, historically underrepresented groups here in LA and in high school, putting them through a computer science boot camp.
How cool
and
is that?
influencing, right, their computer science and what they might major in college. There was someone on my team who was just mentioning an incredible organization. I think it's called Yielding Accomplished African Women. First ever machine learning for women conference that happened in the continent of Africa last weekend.
Holy.
Yeah. So we're starting to see, right, these, again, diverse groups getting learning and training in the space. And I think that is infinitely necessary. So we're not, right, continuing to pluck talent from each other.
It's just sort of feeding the same sort of, the FANG.
Yeah.
Sort of revolving door is not great. Like it doesn't really produce that much net new. No, and look, my experience being from Armenia and seeing that country go through its sort of challenges, breaking out of the Soviet Union, having to stand alone. It's a landlocked country of 3 million people. And like in the last 5 or 10 years, like this generation has really embraced, including the women, and like the opportunity that tech provides.
Yeah.
Because you don't need like ports and free trade zones to export technology as sort of something of value. So they've really embraced technologies, all these startups, great products that are built out of that little country. But it goes to show you that technology can be the great force of democratizing access, democratizing economic value. But just like achieving a sense of balance in leadership teams and tech companies or talent, even that act has to be deliberate in nature. It can't be like, oh, it's just going to happen. Like the markets will just do what they do. No, I think we have to be deliberate in enabling talent from all walks of life to be able to enter technology, because there's also kind of like the it's not all altruism. We actually need more talent. Like we cannot fulfill the demand if we sort of create an environment that's sort of half the population is disenfranchised from joining tech. Can't do it. Non-starter, it's a huge disadvantage. And so I'm super happy that we have a more diverse organization than ever. It's clear what Google's been doing. You know, Janet Kennedy, Kristen Kliphaus, Jen Chasen, Meg Tucker out here in LA. Like, it's clear, like, you know, how deliberate Google's being. But also on our board, the first 2 outside board members we ever had were
congratulations,
also women. Yeah, but you know, women are just part of the equation. But it has to be a deliberate act, I think. In a capitalist environment, in sort of a pure entrepreneurial sense, it still has to be a deliberate act.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, and look, I'm interested in joining anything you're doing in LA as SADA, like from that standpoint, along those lines.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Then feel free to call me. Always interested. And we're looking for more ways to do that in the community, but also more ways to create, and you and I talked about this, sort of this hiring a dean for SADA University.
Yes.
That we can bring in early sort of new engineers, new whoever that's sort of new in market, and taking them through a program here in which they get placed within departments within SADA. Because the challenge in recent history has been there's been so much demand for like enterprise grade work out of the gate that we haven't been able to hire junior people and put them to work right away. Like these departments are like, look, I don't have the bandwidth to train. If we could offload that to a different distinct group within SADA that can do that initial technical and other sort of training programs for 3 to 6 months and then place them within SADA, I think that's another way to address the talent shortage of now and the foreseeable future. But also, I think in that group, we can be deliberate about who we bring in, right? It shouldn't just be like cookie cutter or what we think is like the right profile. It should be very diverse.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, even going back to my initial technology job, it was an apprenticeship, right? And I think we're starting to see companies investing in a few months in those style training programs, right?
That's right.
That investment pays off big time because it's untapped talent that wouldn't have been there anyway.
Totally. Yeah. And those should be paid gigs.
Yep.
And, but I think what we're realizing, it has to be somebody's job at SADA to do that. And they get judged on how well they place within SADA, like has to be very deliberate. And I think we're close on making a decision on who's going to lead that within SADA. Obviously, whoever it is, Miles Ward is going to be like the provost.
Yeah.
With a lot of the curriculum on the technology side, at least. And he's super excited about that because creating more engineering talent should be a big part of the output of SADA University. Let's pivot a little bit to your journey at Google Cloud and your role now. When we heard that you're sort of entering the PSO organization, that's something we have a lot of experience with already. We see that our partnership with PSO broadly is actually increasing and enhancing. We're seeing more deals and more customers in which we're working with together. And I think we're more closely aligned with, Jason and of course Patrick in the US and like more than ever. So, but partner programs within PSO is new. Relatively new.
Relatively.
You were the first one to lead that?
Yeah. So our team, and mind you, our team might now be called Partner Services COE, right?
Okay,
so under that umbrella is programs, operations, and some management.
Yes.
So my domain is programs, and that can range from everything from subcontracting, with our partners, our shadow program, which net new, our partner success services, which is sort of our flagship. I think new engagement model that we have with partners, right? First ever professional services SKU for our partners.
It's amazing.
We can go to market actually together when it comes to delivering services that are partner led. So that's amazing. That's my domain, right? This is, we're like the centralized global team within PSO that focuses on our partners.
PSO, Jason Martin was here at our All Hands, and Friday of our All Hands week was all sort of professional services day. And, he was really good about articulating Google's overall strategy, which, again, I think will continue to play an instrumental role in winning the biggest, most complex deals, like the recent ones we saw, Sabre, Activision, even ones that don't make headline news. A lot of those, I think, would not be possible if not for what John Jester and Jason and the whole team is doing globally around reducing the perceived risk for customers to choose Google Cloud, and then in increasing the probability of success in the initial set of work that a customer has in terms of turning something on or migrating to or developing something that's, I think uniquely suited for Google Cloud. And I think that's been a big change. And I think without that, these sort of enterprise deals would probably not, have happened as successfully.
Right.
And look, every major software cloud vendor has PSO. Salesforce has some, Oracle, of course, Microsoft with MCS and Avanade and the Accenture partnership as well. And so it's very exciting to see Google get to this level of enterprise execution ability.
I think as you heard it, right, with Jason, I'm sure in your all hands, right, as we are increasing to enterprise, not just enterprise readiness, it's like enterprise go time. We need our partners to scale through, right? I think a lot of our, perhaps some of, our competitors have, a service arm that there is a part of their core of their strategy.
Yeah.
And of course ours is too. But what goes along with that is scaling through our partners, with our partners, to our partners. Without that, right, we don't have a strong services strategy.
Look, when Jason first joined, we were all like in ecosystems like 3.5 years ago. We're like, oh my God, Google's going to start doing all the stuff that we do themselves. And Jason was like, look, I came from VMware. That's not how it works.
Exactly.
And we're like, cool. All right, good. We're just checking. And no, I think it actually opens up more opportunity for services. Right now, we're working with PSO and customers we'd have no other way of getting into. That's already starting to happen. It's very early. And look, for Google's sort of, P&L as Google Cloud or whatever, the intention, it can never be that PSO is like a big profit center. It's, it's just an enabler. And of course, economics have to make sense for that, but it's not going to be like Microsoft Consulting Services. It's not going to be like Oracle services. It's not going to be like IBM services. It's going to be completely different. And we understand that. And I think that's where us aligning closely with the field, because what I've also learned is how much the field sales organization has influence about which partners play well. So we have to earn our keep there and stay on top of mind. But also we're, as you know, really good at programs at SADA along the lines of all the marketing programs, all the other things that we're required to do to be premier partner. So in the spirit of us raising our hand and having a high tolerance for pain, that we're as excited as anyone to get really engaged with the programs around the PSO partnership, because we feel like that's going to unlock a lot of value in customers and help us make huge inroads into the enterprise together.
Absolutely. And I also look at we're almost at this nexus now of RSI, GSI, and what does the overall, partner solution for a customer look like, right? How are they playing together? Initial customer workloads, right? Managed services, which partners are going to have the full customer life cycle in the journey, and which ones are going to be able to, come in and out. I think that's what we're looking forward to also seeing. What's the end-to-end partner solution that we're able to give customers? And I think we're finally at that time where we get to start building those.
Look, we've been driven by a lot of the economic strategy around the Google business in developing something that's hard to define in the traditional sense of, are you a licensed reseller? Are you a consultancy? Are you a SI? Are you what are you? Are you an MSP? I think, from the G Suite days, we've been kind of driven towards creating a model that actually fulfills the entire value chain, which is like sourcing business, closing business, contracting, doing the initial project well, doing the next project well, and then putting into a customer success or managed services lifecycle as part of what I think consumption economics and recurring revenue rewards like that sort of structure and that sort of behavior. And we also tend to believe that creates the best customer experience. Doesn't fit in every case, especially the largest of enterprises. They're always going to have multiple partners. They're sometimes going to contract directly with Google, which is totally fine. And we have a lot of flexibility there. But I think, we're seeing more of the enterprise want to transact with us, and we're seeing corporate customers turn into enterprise customers. So I think being completely candid in which parts we're planning on doing well and which parts we're not going to do well. Like, we're not going to do SAP work with GCP. Like, that is the GSI's pond. They're very good at SAP already. They're just shifting to Google Cloud, which is a way shorter path than us spinning up
ramping up
practice.
on SAP. yeah.
So, but other things around VM migration, data analytics, and those hybrid, those plays now, CCAI, that of course, work transformation with G Suite, et cetera, and cloud search. Like, those things we're going to be deliberate about and want to be best in class in. And I think understanding the with PSO playbook and with the sales organization playbook is gonna land really well, especially if we orchestrate it right in producing the best customer experience. Which at the end of the day, in the cloud game, that's what it's about.
Yep.
We can't take any customer for granted. We're earning our keep every month, every year as Google Cloud and as SADA. And the best customer experiences are where we are very well orchestrated, not only in the pre-sales process, but then, the post-sale experience together with Google.
And it's interesting too, right? As we transition into the cloud sales cycle, right? It's something that's not linear anymore. It's a circle. You've almost built your practice around, right, each phase of, what's infinity now?
Totally. That's why we call it the infinite game.
Yeah.
Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
Look, we had 2018, we had 98% renewal rate in our G Suite base. That doesn't count the upsells and upgrades. Our GCP business, like 4X, not all of that can't be net new. Like, we as a company, we grew over 70% last year as a company. We can't grow at that clip if we keep losing customers. We have to do both, keeping and growing customers and selling, new and obtaining, new customers, which is exactly what Google's challenge is. And by the way, one of the reasons we're so aligned with Google and can be is because we care as much about revenue to Google, whether it's PSO revenue and bookings that the sellers get to sell or consumption revenue, as Google does. So our business model and Google's business model is like exactly the same.
Two and the same, yeah.
And that's another thing when people look at our P&L, whether it's our new board members, and they're like, you guys are kind of like a software company. Like, you're kind of like a software company, but you're a services company. It's very new. These kind of companies like SADA, they didn't really exist in the past because there was not this kind of market available and this kind of work for SIs to do. So Kyla, as you saw, Sundar on the earnings call, I think it was just yesterday, not only talked about like the $10 billion run rate for Google Cloud now, but the fact that in their earnings reports, Google's going to actually carve out Google Cloud and YouTube, interestingly, but for the first time. And I think a lot of people were surprised by the size of the business, but also that they're making this bold statement of carving it out in a way that's like, we have nothing to hide. We're proud of this. This business is here to stay. Like, like, it meant so much for it to carve out. So I could only imagine kind of, the internal excitement and chatter within Google, obviously to the degree that you're comfortable talking about. But what do you see in 2020 and beyond in Google Cloud's journey and in PSO's journey?
Yeah, I think two things. Google Cloud in general. One, to associate Google with cloud first, right?
Yes.
I think it was Urs has said that recently.
Yeah.
That feels being on the inside, it feels like we're already there, but I think being able to see externally that we're associating Google with cloud, and that is, that's exciting. And I think secondly, just watching the transition of our strategy and the strategy that we have with our customers and their journeys has been super interesting. I remember joining at SADA, and it was like I was selling a 157 product suitcase, right? Here are all of the Lego pieces. There's many things that are possible. Yeah. And then, right, we've moved into solutions. Now we're verticalizing, right, the solution sets that we have. And I think, right, that next step is just continuing to focus on business outcomes, solving for business challenges. And we have all the solutions and products that we can reverse engineer from that. It's been a really, I think, exciting journey to see that. And fundamentally what that means is we're selling to enterprises.
Yeah. Totally impressed with how quickly TK and Rob have been able to shift and make those things happen.
Yeah.
Because, any company of Google's size, but also, in the past being associated with like, oh, we're a consumer company, like their enterprise stamp is so deliberate and so clear now from the inside and the outside. I'm super impressed with the velocity.
Absolutely. And I think specifically for professional services, you mentioned it, right? We're getting these mega enterprise logos. What's going to come with that is mega services and partners, right? Yeah. Delivering with us. I think we're going to start to see a lot of variety in how we're leading services. I think there's going to be a lot more partner-led. I think there's going to be a lot bigger deals in general, and bringing everybody along for that ride. We have to.
Wow. Yeah, that's really exciting. It's what we're, staffing up for, frankly. We have to hire something like 90 people for the balance of the year, and we're only like 200 people today. So you saw Manny, him and I talk every day still. Like, he runs the talent acquisitions team. I'm signing like 1 or 2 offers a day, and I love it. Not everyone accepts, but it's like a very high acceptance rate. And it's the first year where I feel like, it's the first year we're just Google Cloud, because last year the divestiture happened like in March, and the first half of the year was kind of distracting. But I just feel like my big task is just execute, like just keep up with Google, because the demand is unlimited. The only question is, can we, meaning SADA and Google Cloud, continue to be the supplier of choice? Right. And I'd much rather be in this business than any other business in the world. I'm grateful for the partnership. Grateful to have you on our podcast. And I look very, very forward to working even closely with you on the PSO Partner Program and being a big part of your portfolio.
Excellent. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for listening to Cloud and Clear. Check the show notes for links to this week's topics. And don't forget to connect with us on Twitter @Cloud&Clear and our website, sada.com. Be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app.